Hello and welcome to the Sonic Cinema podcast. My name is Brian Scuttle and thank you for joining us at www.sonic-cinema.com. In my latest interview with filmmakers whom I've reviewed films for over the years, today's guest is Chris Esper. He is a writer-director out of Massachusetts whose short films include Still Life, Steak Knives, Always a Reason, and Please Punish Me. And this summer, he released a book called The Filmmaker's Journey, or What Nobody Tells You About the Industry. It was an entertaining read. It's about 100 pages long. It's reasonably affordable online, and you can find it at Amazon, Barnes & Noble, places like that. And it was my pleasure to talk to Chris today about the book, about his films, and about some of the films and filmmakers who's inspired him over the years. So please welcome Chris Esper. Well, one of the filmmakers I've had the pleasure of getting to know over the years through both his work as well as social media is a writer-director out of Massachusetts, Chris Esper. And this summer, he actually, in addition to his film work, which includes Still Life and Please Punish Me, both of which have been reviewed on Sonic Cinema, he also published a book called The Filmmaker's Journey, or What Nobody Tells You About the Industry. And it's a really lovely, quick read. It's an entertaining series of stories about his own personal journey as far as becoming a professional filmmaker, what it's like to sometimes be a professional filmmaker, and it's really quite an enlightening experience as far as the modern independent film, the way independent films tend to have to get made nowadays. And it's my pleasure to talk with him today. Please welcome Chris Esper.
Hey, thank you for having me, Brian. Appreciate it.
Well, I know we've talked. I know you've expressed interest on being on the podcast for a long time, and part of the reason why I waited was because of the fact that I wanted to read The Filmmaker's Journey before I did so. Before we did an interview, and I'm glad that I did because it was a really entertaining book, and it's interesting to me just how much detail and how much information you're able to distill in just under 100 pages. It's really quite impressive.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah.
What exactly inspired you to write the book?
What inspired me? Well, I would say, for a while, I was doing a video blog on my YouTube page of the same name, also called The Filmmaker's Journey. And in that video blog, I would pretty much tell the same stories that I would express in the book, except with the video blog, I try to keep it at least 3 to 5 minutes, sometimes shorter. And so there's only so much you can really say in 3 to 5 minutes. And so I decided that by writing a book version of what I wanted to say, I could express more, I could say more, and I could ultimately give more sound advice in writing than I could in video. And also because for a couple of years now, I just realized in graduating from college and trying to find work as a filmmaker and trying to make my own stuff, that there's quite a bit of things about the business that nobody really mentions or says, and there's so many books out there that don't really give the full reality about what it's like being a filmmaker. And I think one of the biggest things that really prompted my inspiration to write the book was that if you read up about some of your favorite filmmakers or heroes of any field, the one thing I always notice is that there's always stories about all the success. Well, that's all good and fine, but what did these people have to do to become a success that had to fail time and time again? And so I really wanted to show within the book to embrace your humble beginnings, embrace struggles, embrace failure, to oversee that and rise up above that.
Were there any particular books that you had read on film that inspired you?
Not so much film books actually. There was one book by Stephen Pressfield called The War of Art, and that really inspired me because that book really gave me a swift kick to get up and do something creative. When I read it, basically, the author throughout the entire book, it's very short as well, only about 110 pages, I want to say, if not a little bit more. Throughout the entire book, Stephen Pressfield just constantly gives reasons and excuses that people make as to why they can't do something creative. And so he kind of turns that around and says, you know what? There is no excuse. You can do something. You can make, you can paint that picture that you wanted to make. You can write that story that you've been wanting to tell, or what have you. And so that book really inspired me to want to get up and do something. And so that was one resource that inspired me. And also a couple of film books, mostly books about, I guess, not so much make movies, but more like the history of cinema and things like that. Like those kind of books I've often found attracted to. And also life stories of some of my favorite directors, like reading those. Kind of got me thinking, well, gee, they had to start somewhere, so I kind of want to share what my current phase is and my starting of my career. So, yeah, I guess it was a combination of many things.
I know one of the chapters, one of the areas that you talk about in the book that really interested me, and in the end, it does make sense, is the idea of in addition to making your own films or trying to make your own films, you also are a videographer, and you've
Yes.
also done a lot of work there. And what exactly in that profession? I think you talk about it in the book a little bit, but what exactly in that profession are you able? Is there anything from doing that you're able to translate into your filmmaking interests?
Yeah, absolutely. I try to actually use my creativity that I've gained in filmmaking. I try to translate it into my videography. Then, for example, when I do weddings, let's say, because that's really what pays a lot of bills for me is doing weddings and filming them. I always tell couples, different ideas like, oh, instead of me just filming your day, I could do something unique. Like I could film, we could recreate your proposal on film. We could recreate your first date, or I don't know, something like that. That makes it fun for them, but also fun for me as a videographer. Because to be honest, doing videography work it can be fun, but oftentimes you find yourself getting bored very easily because it's a lot of the same thing over and over again. But by doing videography, it's also good training in filmmaking in that you train yourself to move quickly. You train yourself to think on your feet as fast as possible, especially when you're doing something that's live, like a wedding or like an event or what have you, where it's all about the moments. And if you miss that moment, it's gone. So it's good training in that sense to think quickly and to also develop a more disciplined eye to quickly catch something and know when to get the good shot. And especially when you're making a movie and you're on a tight schedule and you know that you have to get the certain shot, but you know you can't get it, so you have to make a compromise. And I think by doing videography, I've learned how to make a compromise, but still getting the same results and getting that creative shot that I wanted. It may not be the exact vision in my head, but it will be a good alternative, so to speak.
I know, and one of the other thing you talk a lot, you talk some in the book about sending your films out to film critics and seeing if they're interested in reviewing them for their websites and just getting feedback on your work. And one of the things that you mentioned about that, and also about especially film festival submissions, is the idea that as an artist, as a filmmaker, it's important to sort of develop a thick skin because of the fact
Yes.
that you obviously nobody really likes negative criticism, but at the same time, it's as an artist, it is important to grow, and that's one of the things that I know when I first started doing music about 15, 20 years ago, that was important to me. That was something that I needed to really hone in on and make sure that I could do is develop a thick skin and just really let criticism influence me in a positive way as opposed to a negative way.
Right. Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. Yeah, it's a tough thing to face, but it's one of those things that we as artists need in order, like you said, in order to grow and ultimately develop our voice as artists. Because I think with criticism also comes a honing of your voice and a honing of your craft to the point that you become what I guess you could say unconsciously competent, and the reason I say that is because when you're making something, you're worried about every little thing, but until you master it, you become so good at it that it becomes almost second nature. And so I think in that sense, yes, criticism is definitely a much needed thing.
Were you nervous those first times that you seeked out criticism, or seeked out reviews for your films the first time? Some of the first times that you did that.
Oh, absolutely, I was. Because the first film I ever got that ever has been reviewed of anything I've done was Still Life, and the first review that it got wasn't really very good. It was I'm not going to say who it was, but this person just didn't see. He saw some good in it, but ultimately he thought it just looked and felt like a student film, and that it was cliched story. So, that was very upsetting, especially for a first review. But I just marched on. I sent it to more critics, and then gradually I started seeing more and more positive reviews for that particular project, and then that kind of gave me the confidence to keep sending it out. But even then, I still even when I send a film out now, like I'm still never sure. So there's always that sense of nervousness, apprehension. But in the end, it's nice. It's nice when somebody sees something that you did, not only appreciates it, but also sees other layers of it that you yourself probably didn't even see. Like with Still Life, there was one critic that picked up on the fact that most of the shots were static, and the critic said, "Oh, it's very much like a photograph, like the photographer." I'm like, I wish I thought of that, but yeah, I wasn't that smart at the time to really pick up on that idea. But things like that really, it's very, very gratifying when I see comments like that.
Yeah, it's yeah. I mean, I know I've had a couple of interactions with filmmakers where it's like, I think I've pointed out something in their reviews or in my review of their work, and it's like, I didn't really think about that, or it's like, boy, you absolutely nailed that, and it's like a lot of people have not. So that was, it's nice for me to hear that it's like, okay, so I'm on the same wavelength as this filmmaker, and
right,
as well as possibly the filmmaker going, oh wow, that's something I didn't really think about even in my own work. And so
right,
and I can imagine that it definitely pushes you the next time you go out, and it's like, okay, so what are the different layers that I can bring out of this particular project?
Exactly, yeah.
Okay, if I'm gonna step away for a minute, I need to. Our cat is chewing on my cord, so I'm gonna get the cat out here. Just a minute.
That's fine.
Okay, I'm back.
It's okay.
Okay. Well, let's talk about Still Life a little bit. I believe that I'm pretty sure that was the first film of yours that I had seen. I believe either 2012 or 2013 is when I.
I think. Yeah, so I think it was like Yep, 2012. Yep.
And well, one of the it's been a while since I've seen it, but what exactly what sort of inspired you in making that film, and sort of just what what was it that what was it that I guess inspired you to make that film? Because that was one of your very first sort of projects,
Yes.
right?
Yeah, I had just, when I made that, I was just finishing college and just getting my degree, and I just finished it. And when I wasn't, and every night I would come home, like I think it was around, 2012 was when I wrote it as well. So after I would come home from classes, I would spend my nights writing the script, and the idea, I guess, came from real life because I was going through a period where, like much like we talked about, it was my first time ever, going into getting up in front of a class, presenting my work, and for the first time, somebody critiquing my work. Because before then, you show to friends and family, everybody says you're brilliant, so it's like, it's often a misleading thing. So you develop this kind of idea that that everything you do is gold, and you can't possibly mess up, And so when I first made something in school and I showed it, and I had my professor, my classmates critiquing me, it was a very eye-opening experience where I was like, oh wow, never felt like this before after showing something. And so I kind of so I learned very quickly the importance of critique and failure, and so I took those feelings and basically wrote the script. And it's funny, like at first it was from a place of anger, where the character was very angry, very defensive, and it just didn't work. And so after I showed it to a few folks, and they also the same thing, they said, this character's too angry. And so he eventually ended up with the attitude that he has now. And so, it just came from a place of personal experience, and also kind of a way of like teaching myself, in a way, the message of the film, which is that you could grow through critique and failure, and ultimately, persevere as an artist. Doesn't mean you're not talented, doesn't mean you're not good. It just means that there are places of improvement. And so that was kind of the basis of the film.
Yeah, and it's one of the and like you were talking about, it's like it's one thing to share your work with like friends and family and what have you, and you're almost certain to get that positive validation of, oh, you're doing a good job, and then you show to other people doing their own work, and it's a very different thing. I've definitely I've definitely felt that myself as a musician and a composer. One of the last short film of yours that I watched was Please Punish Me, which you sent me last year, and I really enjoyed. And,
thank you.
What was I know you didn't write the script to that one, did you?
I did not. No. The last script I actually wrote up until that point was Still Life. Because the other two I did after that, Always a Reason to Steak Knives, and then this one, they were all written by somebody else. And so I decided to. So this script, it's funny how this came about, because I finished Still Life. It was doing well on the festival circuit, and then I got approached by a friend of mine, someone who I just met by that point. He's an actor, Tom Paolino, and he approached me about working on stuff together. And so he said that he had this script that was sitting on a flash drive for like at least a good number of years. I'm not sure how long, but then he sent me this like the 7-page script. It was called The House of No. And I read it, and just like in Please Punish Me, it's a guy who isn't particularly fond of his job, and he ends up in a BDSM kind of place, gets beat, and then similar kind of ending, a little different from what I recall. And I thought it was I thought the idea was so intriguing, especially the ending. The ending, I was just like, okay, yeah. I was like, oh yeah, I definitely have to do this. Because at first I was very nervous, because when I read it and I got to that scene, I was like, how the hell am I going to do this? I don't know anything about that. I don't know anything about this. This is too weird for me. But then as I kept reading it, I was like, okay, I get the point now. And so that prompted me to say, yeah, I definitely want to do this. And so I told Tom I'm interested, and I told him that I would like to see some rewrites, and he said, sure, no problem. So I sent it to my good friend Rich Camp, whom I have worked with he's my best friend, and we've worked together for at least like 5 or 6 years now, he and I. And so I told him to look at it, take a look at it, see what he could do with it. And so he kind of amped up the story, made it a little bit longer, amped up some of the comedy a little bit, and that was kind of the results. But was that it was his idea to add in the boardroom scene where the guys are grumbling with their cigars and things like that, and some of the other little jokes here and there. And so, yeah, that was all Rich and Tom's writing. And then from that point, we ended up casting in, I think, summer of 2013, I want to say, and then we shot in the winter of 2014 and released it last year.
Well, yeah. Well, I know, yeah, and that one's actually done pretty decently on the festival circuit as well, if I remember.
Oh yeah. We've now. I mean, we've just we played in 21 festivals now, and we won a couple of awards actually. As of late, actually, it's funny. Like I had a slow start on the festivals. Like at first, it was getting a lot of rejections because of the subject matter, but then eventually it just kicked, and now all of a sudden it's been getting accepted like left and right, and we won a bunch of these awards this year. So I mean, it's been very gratifying to see it do as well as it's doing.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you have anything you're working on right now as far as films?
Yeah, quite a few things. I just finished a short film that I directed and also wrote. It's the first script I've written since Still Life. And this one is called On Date and Line. And it's basically about a guy who, it's also a comedy. It's about a guy who is going back into the dating world for the first time in a long time. So he discovers that he needs a resume and cover letter in order to date. And so we just shot that a few weeks ago, and now it's in post-production. And I just saw the rough cut actually very recently, and I'm really proud of it. It's really fantastic. So I'm happy about that one. And I also shot another film in October called The Deja Vuers, and it's about people that experience, they experience deja vu, and they try to figure out where it comes from. It's written by a guy from Tennessee named Jason K. Allen, and that's almost finished editing, and I have, and there's another short that a friend of mine are doing probably this year, or either in December or sometime next year. All that, and I really want to write my first feature currently, and hopefully start another book. Who knows? So yeah, I mean, just trying to keep as busy as possible and as creative as I can be.
Yeah. Well, yeah, and obviously I'll definitely check out those short films once those are ready to watch. I'll definitely be on the lookout to hear from you.
Excellent.
For that. So in your book, and just based on following you on social media, I know that Martin Scorsese is your favorite filmmaker of all time, and perfectly understandable why. I'm
yes,
a huge fan of his myself. What other filmmakers do you consider favorites? Do you consider some of the people who have influenced you most over the years?
Yeah, there's a lot of filmmakers I love like that. There's also, I love Alfred Hitchcock. I also love Stanley Kubrick, David Cronenberg, Michael Cimino, who I think is a highly underrated director in my regard. And also, I also love Francois Truffaut. I love his work to death. He's wonderful. Or was wonderful, I should say.
Yeah.
Fellini, like just all the great directors like that. I adore their work.
And you're if I remember correctly, you're a Tarkovsky fan as well, right?
Oh yeah, I love
Yeah.
Tarkovsky. Yeah, like
Yeah.
Stalker, which I think it's. I mean, to be honest, it's one of the few of his I've actually seen. 'Cause there's still quite a few I need to see, but
Yeah.
Stalker for me is it's a masterpiece. Just the beautiful cinematography. I love the way he holds a shot for just a number of minutes. And for today's audiences, that would be too much. But I don't know. There's something to appreciate about that, and there's something that's they look like his shots look like paintings. They look like dreams.
Yeah.
They're wonderful.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember Stalker was actually the first one of his that I had watched when I first started watching his movies, and I was really, it really does test your patience as an audience member. It's like it's
Right.
2 hours 40 minutes. It's very slow, but if you can get into the rhythms and the way he tells that story, it really will grab hold of you, and you just can't help but follow those.
Oh, exactly. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, I mean, I actually own all of his features as well as his
that's excellent.
diploma film. I'm still waiting on Criterion Collection to re-release Andrei Rublev. It's the only one they've released previously that they haven't re-released in high definition. That annoys the living daylights out of me because just how amazing that movie is on a visual level. So what I know based on following you on Facebook and what have you, it's like I know you have you seem to have a soft spot for boxing. And I mean, I know
for boxing. Oh yeah.
And I know Raging Bull and Rocky are some of your favorite films.
Yes.
What other films would you consider some of your favorites?
Let's see. Other favorite. The original King Kong, I would say, is one of my favorites. I would also say Wizard of Oz. Let's see. Yeah, Wizard of Oz, King Kong, The Godfather, Cinema Paradiso, Day for Night, by Truffaut, 8.5. Also, being John Malkovich, like pretty much anything by Charlie Kaufman, I absolutely adore.
Yeah.
His movies are just like, I think of all the screenwriters, his films inspire me the most because his work is so meditative, but yet it's so surreal and wonderful. It's the kind of films I wish to make.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, 8.5 doesn't surprise me at all. It's like if there's somebody who loves cinema and wants to make movies who isn't really inspired by 8.5, I'd kind of be surprised by that.
I should also mention. Sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to also say another one which I love by Michael Powell called Peeping Tom, which I think is just that movie for me is an absolute masterpiece. And also Hitchcock's films like Psycho and Vertigo. Kubrick's films like Clockwork Orange, like those films, I find just absolutely stunning in every way possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean this is part of why wanted to have you on, just because I feel like I could just talk movies with you for a long time, and it's like that alone, even if you didn't have like your own projects or anything like that to talk about, it's like we could probably talk about that pretty comfortably for at least 20-30 minutes or so.
Oh, I agree. I mean, I started taking an acting class recently, and my acting teacher is also a director, and so after class just this past week, he and I we were just talking film. We must have been talking there for about 2 hours about all the different films that we liked. Like we just it was like that's just the way it is. Like, it's like, I think Frank Capra said it best. Frank Capra said, film is like a drug. It's like once you start it, you just can't stop.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and I think I had heard that quote in Scorsese's documentary on American films, which is...
Oh, yes.
I I've watched dozens of times over the years. It's like that to me is just if you want a solid primer into American cinema or just cinema in general, it's like that and his Italian film documentary kind of does it right there.
Oh yeah, I totally agree, and that's what I love about him so much is that he has this contagious passion for cinema and this contagious knowledge of cinema that's just totally unparalleled with any other filmmaker that I know, other than Quentin Tarantino, whom I'm not really a fan of, but I like his work nonetheless. You know, I'm just not really a fan of QT, but I do. But with Scorsese, it's different. It's genuine. It feels right when you listen to him speak.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And you know, it's funny. It's like when Hugo came out a few years ago. It's like you put in context of those documentaries. It's like those documentaries are sort of like your graduate course Scorsese's giving you on cinema. Hugo is more like film appreciation. You know, because
exactly. Yeah. I mean, I would even argue that Hugo is an autobiography in a way.
Oh yeah.
You know,
absolutely. What has been the feedback from filmmakers? Have you heard from filmmakers who've read Filmmaker's Journey or followed your vlog, and what have they had to say about it?
Quite a few. A lot of them said, a lot of them very positive. I hit the nail around the head with what I've written, and there were some that are up and comers that didn't know a lot of the stuff and said, oh wow, I didn't know some of this stuff. You know, thanks for sharing your story. Like even actors have even come to me and said, you know, I never knew what it was like from a director's perspective to make a movie, but thanks to your book, you know, now I know.
Right.
And so the feedback has been very, very positive, both from film critics such as yourself who have reviewed it and looked at it on reviewed it on their websites, or even talked about it on podcasts, or even recently I just got a review from someone who's not a filmmaker, not even in the film business, but a literature critic. And I thought, well, okay, you know, let me see how this does, because you know the book is not Shakespeare. I mean, I'd be lying if I said it was Shakespeare, but the person who read it said, first of all, she loved it, which was great, and she saw what I was trying to do. So, and one thing she noted that I thought was fascinating was that she said, you know, this book isn't just for filmmakers; it's also for those who are young and up and coming, and also starting a career in any field, given a creative endeavor or any kind of other endeavor. And that's, you know, all the same advice that I give applies to any field. And I really didn't think of it that way, but in a way, it's true in that sense.
Mm-hmm. No, and I would actually definitely agree with that. I mean, as a creative individual myself, it resonates with me on that level. But definitely, yeah. I mean, I can definitely see it being something that, you know, it inspires you regardless of what you're trying to get into and what you're trying to do in your life, regardless of whether it's creative or not. And
absolutely.
Just really. And just really giving you a good indication of sort of what it's like to be an adult and to, you know, live a life. And in general, it's like, you know, sometimes you have to take jobs that you don't necessarily want, but it's like sometimes that job can be positive in ways that you don't necessarily expect. And
absolutely, yeah. I mean, and like I mentioned in the book too, like when I did my internship in LA with All Entertainment, you know, that was another thing where, you know, I think most young people will look at that and say, oh yeah, no, I'm not going to work for nothing and do this job. But I mean, but no, I honestly learned a lot by not just from reading the screenplays that I read and doing the script coverage, but I also learned about the industry by watching how the executives worked and what happens in the day-to-day operations, and even just grabbing their coffee or grabbing their lunch. By doing that, you know, they remembered who I was, and they would put me on assignments that the other interns wouldn't get. So, in a way, I think I stood out in that sense. And, you know, I got to, in like being in LA, I figured, well, you know, I'm here, you know, I'm not just going to do my internship. I'm going to take the opportunity to meet other people. And so I even got to meet one of my favorite directors, Kenneth Johnson, who did the Incredible Hulk TV series, Short Circuit 2, just so many great things. And and he also taught me a lot as well. And, by inviting me to his class and such, and then just sitting down with me for an hour and talking to me about film, about filmmaking. He had seen still life and he loved it. And so it was nice to get that kind of appreciation from one of your heroes.
Yeah. No, when you talked about that in the book, I mean, that was definitely something that stood out to me as, and I mean, you really capture a lot of what it is, some of the struggle of trying to do what you love, as well as some of the positives. And I mean, being able to meet one of your heroes like that is definitely it's definitely something that that really resonated with me personally. And thank you very much for the time today. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, likewise. Thank you.
And we'll definitely do this again sometime. I know I was actually I definitely want to around the time when Silence does come out, Scorsese's new one, which I know you're looking forward to as well as I am.
Yes, very much.
I was going to do a podcast on Last Temptation of Christ and Kundun.
Yes.
So, and it occurred to me yesterday, it's like, Chris would be a good person to have on that and be able to talk to you on that one. Yeah. So it's like, hopefully we can definitely do that in the next month or two.
Oh, that'd be great. I'd love to.
All right. Well, thank you very much for your time today.
No, thank you.
Going to do a quick closeout here, and then turn off the recording and make sure we've got everything before I let you go.
All right, great.
All right, just a minute. Thank you very much to Chris Esper for joining me today. Again, you can find his book, The Filmmaker's Journey, online. You can also watch his vlog at Stories in Motion on YouTube. And his films include Still Life and Please Punish Me. It's good to talk to him, and like I said in the interview, sometime in the next month or two, hopefully I'll be able to talk to him again, this time about a couple of Scorsese films that will seem quite fitting for when Silence, his newest film, comes out, Last Temptation of Christ and Kundun. So I'm looking forward to that conversation. Thank you very much for joining us today at soniccinema.com. And I hope you have a lovely holiday. Thank you.